Good evening, guys. Let me pop my chat out so I can see what's going on here. Let me mute this. Hello, Doug. Mickey, Backwoods. Wait for a few more people to show up. Started a few minutes early. And I threw up a camouflage background because I'm going to try and hide after this one. I'm sure it's probably going to make a few people uneasy with themselves. Hopefully the sound of my laptop isn't too annoying. So, has anybody got any questions about the psychology of a prepping mindset before we get started? Hello, Will. Hi, Miss Nina. I see you in there. Mr. X, hello. So we got a small crowd. I guess I can get started. So with events that have been happening recently, one would start thinking about the mindset you need to have in order to prep. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a scenario to kind of get everybody's mindset on the same page. Said event has happened, and you and your little group, band, clique, tribe, pack, whatever you feel like calling it, are on your way to your bug out location. Now, there's a fair decent number of you. First question, do you have somebody doing Overwatch, both in front and in the rear? Well, most people would say yes. Sadly, though, some people don't even consider that an option. They figure, well, we're traveling in a big enough group, that's not a problem. But in order to travel as a group, you have to A, trust one another. You have to trust those you have running Overwatch. So let's say inside your group and you're traveling to point B, you've got your Overwatch. You start hearing murmurings within your group that you have somebody who is a malcontent. For whatever reason, they haven't had their meds recently, or whatever reason, they are choosing to start spreading disinformation, rumors, trying to cause dissension among their ranks. And what are you going to do then? What's your plan? Hi, Christy. Make sure I haven't missed nobody yet. Not yet. Oh, hi, Mary's Vegetable Garden. Hello. So, in order to properly get yourself in the mindset, you have to, and anybody that's been an investigator for anything will tell you that in order to investigate, you have to understand the mindset you're investigating. And in this case, you're going to have to understand the mindset of somebody who suffers from PTSD or is a manipulator for their own personal gain. And in order to do that, you You really have to put yourself into their shoes. There are countless books, I've read a few, sadly, they will warp your mind if you're not careful, on the ability to put yourself into that kind of mindset. If you're not prepared to enter that mindset, you shouldn't do it, because you're going to put yourself into a position where you're thinking that way. And that's the only way to figure that kind of person out. You have to be able to, well, let's go back to our scenario. That person is spreading information, saying that, you know, whatever, you know, they've done enough to where there's other people starting to side with them. And I'm trying to word this in such a way that doesn't come off hostile, negative, or YouTube ban worthy. They're trying to cause physical problems, let's put it that way. They're trying to set it up so that they can take over or something like that. Sorry, it could be my system there, Christy. My laptop is not wanting to cooperate very well. Anyway, but they've got enough people on their side. You as a leader have to decide what to do with these people. Instead of just one, now you've got 3 or 4, but you don't know exactly who they are, but you hear rumors. How do you vet this stuff out? You know, this is part of the prepping mindset that a lot of people don't think about. Now, people who are group leaders will consider these things. They will have a plan in place. But let's just say that your group leader is the one who is off his meds, shall we say. What then? As a group, what do you do then? Do you try and follow the leader, even though he may be a little off his rocker? Or do you kick your leader to the side and try going a different route? Do you try to take over his plantation, shall we say? It's a polite way of putting it. You know, the prepping mindset is not one that's easily navigated for people who aren't willing to investigate it. And I know some people are going to think I'm off my rocker by trying to go this route. And I'm like I say, I'm trying to keep this so it's keeps me from getting banned in YouTubes. Hello, Micro Farm Starter. And I'm trying to keep up with chat too, so forgive me. And if you have questions, please put them in caps so I catch them quickly. Not that anybody ever asked me any questions, but hey, it's out there, right? So, diving into, hello Penelope, and yes, plan A to Z is always a must. But sometimes your plans are destroyed by said group leader who decides to go off in a different tangent. And I'm not going to mention any channel names or any people's names, but a lot of that's been going around a lot lately on prepping groups. And the sad part is the mindset, especially with new people coming into prepping. They're not used to all the idiosyncrasies of prepping. They don't understand the mentality one person has to get into to prep, because it's not just a hobby. It's not, you know, I'm going to do it this week and forget about it next week. And to do it properly, it takes a mindset. It is something you have to endeavor to do. You can't just, you know, it's not a part-time thing. If you're going to be prepared, you have to work on it constantly. Start with your food, your water, your beans, band-aids, and bullets, as some people call it. There's a mindset that goes with that. You have to be able to think outside the box. And thinking outside the box doesn't come easy for a lot of people, especially in this day and age where they grew up on electronics. I didn't, as were most of the people I know didn't. This younger generation grew up in electronics, and they think they can get everything they need from either A, electronics, or B, the government. And our government has blatantly said they are not going to be able to help everybody. You know? So there's a mindset you have to get into. And I'm kind of repeating myself. Sorry. I had notes. Charles scribbled all over my notes with markers and crayons today, so I'm going noteless. Guess that's better than shirtless. But part of the prepping mindset also includes stress. dealing with said stress. And going back to our leader who's having issues, maybe he's just suffering from stress. Maybe it's not PTSD, maybe it's just stress. And anybody that's been in the military will tell you that stress is a necessary evil. You cannot completely eliminate stress. Stress will get, thank you, backwards. Stress will get a fighting man to fight harder. Stress can also get a scared man to run away. Evening, Ox. And so being able to deal with stress. Now, I picked up a book recently, it was the Army's stress management book. Interesting read, some of which I already knew from reading my mom's psychology books from the 60s. Those were interesting. But, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Dealing with the stress. So your leader is under a lot of stress. He's trying to keep 25, 30 people all moving. He's trying to coordinate the front line, the back line. You got sidelines going out. He's trying to keep everything in order. He's trying to do it all by himself. He's decided he doesn't trust enough people in order to delegate it into ranks for whatever reason. Maybe he's leery of spies, and that's understandable. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But dealing with stress is a part of the prepping mindset that very few people deal with. Stress is a great equalizer. Sorry, I'm reading chat too. But the military discovered, and this goes clear back to before World War I, that stress, people under huge amounts of stress, treated near the front line with their unit, diggers, do better and reincorporate themselves back into fighting faster than those moved away from the front lines or their units. The same could be said for, sure you do, Ox. The same can be said for prepping mindset, the preppers. If you have somebody that's suffering from stress, you need to keep them with the group so they can see their group actively working, which will motivate them to get back into the swing of things. If you remove that person from the group, you put him in, say, an outbuilding. They don't, they get their sunlight, of course, but they don't see what's going on. There's a higher probability of that person falling away from the ability to do their jobs than there is of them going back into their job. So having a psychological area for people who are suffering from stress in that area. Very true, Penelope, very true. And that's where thinking outside the box comes in handy, which is something that people just aren't be able to do. And Mickey, I think he has coffee with his stress. So being able to put people in an area where they can see what's going on, they can hear what's going on, it'll be a lot easier to incorporate that person back into activities than if you keep them sheltered and out of the way. Now, obviously, there are certain situations where you're going to want to keep somebody out of the way, locked in a straitjacket underneath the ground in a bunker, but for the most part, we try to avoid those situations. And if it's your leader that is in that position, let's just say I'll throw myself under the bus here. Let's say I'm running a group, and I know full well that I've got at least one spy in my group. And rather than trust anybody else, I take the entire stress of managing forward ops, rear ops, I got lookouts on the sides. I got somebody running comms up to the base camp that's, a day or two ahead of us. And, I've got people spread everywhere. I'm trying to manage it all by myself. After a day or two, you're going to start to collapse under the weight of everything. You have to be able to trust other people. And if I decide not to trust people, then I'm going to fold. So what's the rest of my group going to do? Are they going to throw me literally under a bus and run me over and then try and take on themselves if they don't have all the information? Or is there going to be some sort of support group? So having a support group of some sort is a must. You know, a lot of places don't consider it. I would hope not, Ox. I would hope not. Because even the best leaders suffer from stress. You know, they say Patton suffered from stress. Patton was, according to some, a great military genius. Same with Winston Churchill, another, top name when you come to strategists. They suffer from stress, but there was no mutiny on them. Most were afraid to, but I hope you get my point. Hi, Juanita. Glad you made it. Oops, knocked the mic off. Anyway, excuse me. So, I mean, I hope people can see where they need to start thinking about. Hi, Pat. I hope people can understand where you need to start looking. Compartmentalization, if I could speak correctly, backwards, is something that most good leaders can do. I know a few people that are probably better at it than I am even. And I'm fairly decent myself. I'm not going to toot my own horn or pat myself on the back. It might actually hurt. But I think you and I both know a few people that are quite good at that. I guess I don't see a group from a military perspective. I would think that the process of bonding and building trust would have flushed out some of these qualities. This is true, but on the opposite side of that, Ox, building trust in communities, having meetups, bi-monthly or even semi-annual camping excursions that 3-4 days can only build up so much trust and knowledge of the way a person's going to act. Yeah, you can set it up to where this is the scenario, this is the way we're going to do it, and we've got to do it as if everything's failed. But in the back of everybody's mind, they all know they can jump in a car and go home when it's over. And a true collapse, we're talking years before anything comes back up. At the end of it, there's no getting in your car and going home. That actually changes a person's mental perspective, whether they realize it or not, because it's in the back of their head. And some people don't have a way to deal with that nagging, crawling little thought that keeps creeping up. I don't know how to put it in a layman's terms, but I think the easiest way to say it is people who don't understand what it's like to actually have to live through that stuff. And I know I've been without myself, but I've never had a true SHTF situation where absolutely nothing. Okay? I can only say what I think I can do. Okay? And that's the same with all of us. Unless you've actually lived in bullets flying over your head, you're buried 6 feet deep in a bunker somewhere, most of us can only say what we think we're going to do. In order to get past the thought process, you actually have to mentally prepare yourself. And the only way to do that is by constant mental exercise. You can go out and practice with a tent, practice your bushcraft skills, practice hunting. All that stuff is a step in the right direction. But unless you do the mental exercises that go with it, you'll never start preparing yourself. Well, to a degree, Ox, that's correct. You really don't want to. You want to have more interaction with the people you're trying to deal with. But right now, excuse me, most people have jobs, and it's hard to take that kind of time off. I have time, just no way to get there. And I also have a son, which requires, other duties. So I can't personally run off into the woods and spend 6 months out in the woods. Excuse me. Bad sausage. Well, it was good sausage, just coming back up for a second round. Exactly, Ox. And in order to win that battle, you actually need to mentally prepare. One of my senseis when I was younger, he always taught me to, when I went to start practicing, he told me just do it in my head first. imagine the flow, the movement of what I had to do before I even attempted to do it physically. And when I actually started to do it physically, it felt more natural. And the same goes with prepping. You know, physically, or excuse me, mentally, picture what you got to do. Yes, diggers. Sometimes that's the way it has to be. But once you start to mentally imagine, let's just do something easy. Building a lean-to. You know, okay, I need to figure out, I can see I need these 2 trees. I need a branch to go from here to here. I'm going to need 20 long branches to go from the ground up to the top. I also want an overhang to prevent it, you know, to help keep the rain out. So I want to, you know, mentally do the mental exercises. That way, when you actually go out to physically do it, you're mentally prepared and your body will slowly work. And eventually you'll develop the muscle memory that goes with it. You know, it's people who go target practicing a lot. In their home, they'll take an empty weapon and they'll dry fire it. Or they'll take and use their hands and they'll practice bringing it up, you know, from a position up. You know, that's the same type of mental exercise, even though this includes physical as well. You're imagining, you're using your brain to think about what you're doing. And as you do it, you develop a muscle memory. The same goes with prepping, you know, food storage. You got to think about that. And then it comes all down to security, mental stability, and a whole host of other things. Hurry back, Pat. Don't mind me, I'm trying to catch up, which I think I. Anyway, so if there's any questions, please throw them up there. I'm trying to read tiny words. I need capital words, you know, bigger the better. I'm old. Let's see if I can read any of my notes. Not really. Charles did a good job of destroying my notes. Gibson girl, uh, I'm not fully cognizant of what went on, but you know, an SHTF is independent for everybody during good times and bad times. And you're right, you know, getting the right mental exercise, the nutrition, rest when needed is always important. And to a degree, you're right, Penelope. Some of the people in rural America are, whether they realize it or not, homesteaders or preppers. Whether they want to call themselves that or not, they are a prepper. And sorry, I was reading. Whether they call themselves preppers or not, they're doing exactly what the rest of us do, just on a different level. You know, they've got the farm, we've got the tools. And that's where having the right mindset to where everybody can meet together is important, because sometimes these guys want to do it this way and these guys want to do it this way. Nobody meets in the middle, then there's no mutual aid nowhere. That's why having the right mindset is important. And I just repeated myself. Sorry. It's murder with no notes. Blame Charles. It's all his fault. Gee, I had notes for almost an hour and I've only been at 18 minutes. Are you trying? Actually, are you trying to say Charles sabotaged my notes like the government? All right. So, kind of back to our original scenario because I never really finished it. What would you guys suggest to do with a person who is creating that kind of discord in the group, to where they're actually leaving the group open to attack? What would you do? Right. Gotcha. Okay, Alex. Yeah, our government has never found middle ground since I was a kid. So, yeah, that's a true statement. Right, Digger's right. Hello, Lou. Sure, Pat. We'll blame it on the dog I don't have yet. Yeah, trying to secure one of those where I live is not exactly the easiest thing. But there are options for dealing with said person who is causing discord. Um, you can do it military style, lock them up in a brig. Although if you're moving, that doesn't really work too well unless you just leave the brig tree in the middle of nowhere with them handcuffed to it and a canteen of water and tell them fend for yourself. Yeah, oh well, diggers. It's too late. Anywho, that's one option. Second option is to, like Lou said, which I'm not going to repeat due to, hey, Timo, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. Um, Trying to keep this from getting YouTube banned. Anywho, but lose is an option. And the last option is to feed them disinformation. If you know there's more than one, you put them in a group and you feed them enough disinformation and you have them run forward ops. You have them run up in front, which means they're communicating past you. They have to get behind. They're going to have to talk over top of where you're at in order to get the information they're trying to relay to whatever group. You're right, Ox, and it comes right down to it. Can you do what has to be done if that time comes to it? That works, Lou. Compost pile. That works. Because that's pretty vague for me just to throw it out there. So, you can always feed them. Like I was saying, you can feed them bad information. Um, Tell them you're going one way, and knowing full well that they're feeding bad information, you part ways with them and you head off in a different direction. And before they realize what's happened, you're long gone. That way, they're on their own. Whoever they're communicating with will pick them up, but they have no idea where you're at exactly. And you're right, Diggers. It is dependent upon the situation, but most people don't want to think about two of those three options because they're putting somebody else's health and well-being on the line. There are people who, no matter what, don't want to hurt nobody. I personally don't want to hurt nobody, but if it comes down to my son or me, son and me, over them, there's no question. It's going to be done what has to be done. Good night, Penelope. Thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. Exactly, Gibson girl. I'm the same way with my son. I will do whatever is necessary. But we say that right now, and we live in a very convenient time. No, I know personally what I will do. But would my actions jeopardize the entire group in order for me to do it? There is a chance that I might go a little overboard and cause jeopardy to other people in the process of trying to protect my son. That's something we all have to mentally think about. Sure, I didn't miss nothing. Yes, Ox, and that was the original point, is trying to flush them out. Because if you have one spy, you have more than one. Um, I can't pinpoint any recent activities that would prove it, but usually if you have one, you have more than one. They don't operate by themselves. There's usually a group, and they're usually pretty clandestine in their activities. but eventually you can smoke them out without jeopardizing everything else. And that in lies, you got to figure out what you're going to do with them. No, it's, I agree, Gibson, girl. But I also know my temper. And if somebody's jeopardizing my son, his very well existence, um, I already know I'll overreact. I won't stop. It'll take two or three people to stop me. I'm not a little person. So, I mean, it's a mental exercise we all need to prepare ourselves with. You know, not everybody has went through that thought process. They've thought about the beans, band-aids, and bullets, but they didn't think about the psychological side of it. And therein lies the point, kind of, I tried to make with this live stream tonight, is to get people thinking outside the box, to think about the mental aspects of it. It's not a fun topic. It's not glamorous. It's not going to win you any awards. It's not something shiny you get to put on the shelf. But, it's part of what we have to think of. Well, we won't tell her you said that, Timo. We'll pretend you didn't say that. And that way she makes you a nice, healthy lunch every single day. Because salad is very healthy. We wouldn't want her to slip anything in your salad, right? Any other questions? And you make a good point there, Ox. When it comes down to what we are individually capable of, additionally, if you are going to really hurt or worse an individual, what message are you sending to the rest of the group? For me, don't mess with my son. Um, but that's just me. But there are people who might not take kindly to that message either. Because like I said, I already know where I'll go. I've done the mental exercises. I kind of deal with it to a degree every single day as it is, because I have two people right now who are working to try and take Charles out of my home, and I have to fight them every single step of the way. And they have no idea that I know what's going on yet. They think I'm pretty stupid because I live in public housing. They think I'm old and dumb. I didn't get to be old and gray by being stupid. Just leave that there. So I mental exercise it virtually every single day on a different level. But I can also transition that into a SHTF scenario. A lot of people don't want to go there because there are some people who, if they allow themselves to go into that depth, they put themselves in jeopardy of becoming that mindset. It's hard for some people to separate the good side of themselves from the bad side, because everybody's got one. I don't care who you are, what you are in life, where you work. Everybody has a good side and everybody has a bad side. 90% of people do their very best never to touch their bad side, never to go anywhere. Exactly, Gibson girl. Exactly. You know, nobody wants to touch that. I'll go to this point and then have to think about it because they're afraid they'll never be able to step back from it. And there are people who can't. I didn't used to be able to. I admit it. I used to, if I started going down that kind of road, it'd take me a week to get off of acting like a complete and utter jerk to people. It's taken a lot of years in order for me to learn how to separate myself in such a way to where I can think about these things and not act that way toward other people. It's a lot of exercises. And I still haven't watched The Road yet, Diggers, so I don't know about that one. Any other comments, questions, thoughts, concerns? Telling me I have no idea what I'm talking about? Whatever. Any fun stuff happen? Anybody get any new ideas, new toys to play with? Because like I said, I had an hour's worth and kind of ran out of steam here. God, I hope that's not bugging you guys too bad. Gibson Girl and Ox, you're both correct. But to Gibson Girl, let's just say the person who suffers from PTSD happens to be your group's medic. I mean, what if they suffer PTSD due to working in a hospital as a surgeon or nurse in the ER or something? They seen something that just caused them to snap just a little bit, and they suffer from PTSD. What if that person's a medic you need for your group? Well, it's either that person or no medic at all. So there are certain situations where you have to weigh each side, but you also know that since that medic is the one who suffers from PTSD, and you have herbals that can help with that, you start making the transition from man-made to the herbal so that they can help transition or at least cope better. And to that, Ox, that's kind of where the military aspect comes into it, because if you have a member of the group, let's say there's an altercation between two people and one of them kills the other one, well, then it goes to military tribunal. I mean, in an SHTF situation, as much as some people aren't going to like it, it's going to have to be run kind of like the military. You're going to have a chain of command. You're going to have rules, regulations. Um, everything requires a set way of getting it done. And if there's an act of murder, then it's got to be dealt with accordingly. Now, if you're mobile and you're having to move constantly, then you're not going to be able to have a brig of any kind. So, I mean, it comes down to how you deal with that. Like I say, I'm trying to keep this one family friendly and not banned, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details on that one. But we can on my Discord if anybody wants to go over there and talk about it, because they don't monitor Discord like they do YouTube. And sometimes Gibson Girl, you're right. Sometimes you have to turn people away. It's when it's when they're that. PTSD is workable if, and it's a big if, the person is willing to accept the help. Not everybody is willing to accept it though. But that's why you try to figure this out in advance. See if I can catch up. I tried that. Timo, Phonics and me just don't get along very well. I kicked Phonics to the curb. It came back and kicked me right square in the teeth. So I gave up on Phonics. And Gibson Girl, that's something I need to study up on again. I haven't looked at wild edibles since I was in my 20s. Yes, a long time ago. So I need to actually get out and study mine again. Well, for me, personally, I see military leadership being the primary way it would go um, for successful groups. Now, I'm sure in larger communities, um, they would probably have like a mayor or something like that. You know, somebody that they've elected to run the whole town, and you've got your police or whatever, your security situations. But in smaller groups of, I want to say 50 or less, having a military rank system is what's going to be needed. Everybody's going to have to know, hey, this is my job and that's all I need to worry about. And then the guy above them, this is my job and I got to worry about him. You know, that way it takes the stress off of one member and distributes it down. Crap rolls downhill. So you don't want one person holding all that crap and let it fall to everybody else all at once. You know, trickle down effect sometimes is actually a better option. Yeah, the business model is feasible. I will say that. But most of your hardcore um, groups come at it from a military perspective to start with. You know, your homesteaders, they're more of the business model type people. Um, I'm not going to say all, but a few that I have met have never been in the military, so they don't understand the military chain of command. So for them, they're going to have a hard time transitioning into that. But see, they've already got their home. They've already got what they need. They're not going to be as mobile as, you know, uh, let's say all of us meet up and we all have to go to Kathmandu in order to survive as a group. All of us are going to need a, who's ever in charge, and there's going to be lieutenants, captains, however we decide to rank it, or, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Everybody's going to have, all right, these people have this job. This is the job that they have to worry about. These people take care of the food. These people take care of the weapons and stuff like that. So that's where the military mindset comes into play, at least from my perspective. And that's kind of why I tried to bring it up backwoods is, a lot of people they don't look at the psychology in prepping, therefore they're not prepared for if and anything happens. You know, there are channels out there that are saying the end is coming, the end is coming, the end is coming, and then they tell you go buy gold. Or they say go buy my backpack or go buy my knife. Well, that's not helping the people who are looking for answers. Admittedly, you're not going to find all your answers on YouTube. You got to use your brain, do a little bit of reading. But those channels that are bigger telling people, go buy gold, it will save you. No, gold's not. If you ain't holding it, it ain't going to do you a darn bit of good. Sending $4,000 to a company to hold the gold for you, guess what? Crap happens. They've still got your gold and you ain't got crap. Yeah, did I miss something? Question about the military model. Would you cross train so you can rotate folks around as needed to fill jobs? Yes. Yes. Especially in smaller groups. Um, that's just the way I look at it. It's just like a factory job. You got people who are cross trained at different positions within the factory. It's the same concept. If one person goes down and there's nobody to fill that position, then the group starts leaning off to one side. It's not stable anymore. It's like a Jenga tower. Pull off one block. If there's no support, it's going to fall. So you have to cross train in order to get, you know, your job, diggers, is to, you know, I don't know, fish for the next 2 days. It's your job to fish. Well, you're going down to the bank and you slip and fracture an ankle. Well, if you're the only person that knows how to fish, guess what? Nobody's eating. So, I mean, yes, it's kind of a very simplified version of it, but that's why you want to cross train. Excuse me. Yeah, I think I've caught up. Anybody else with anything? Or any other topics you would like me to attempt to pretend to tackle? I slept at Holiday Inn a couple years ago, so I'm just pretending right now. What did I do now, Timo? What did I do? This is true, Ox, and throughout history, there's been those dictators. That's what they are, is a dictatorship. And they figure once they're in power, that's why having the group meetups is important, even if it is only once every few months, because you will get to see a side of that person. Now, I personally don't know of anybody who would, well, let me rephrase that. I haven't met anybody face to face recently that wants to act that way, though I do know a few people who will act that way. And yes, there are militia groups out there that are that way. And they are, oh, sorry, Timo, that wasn't directly meant toward you. Sorry. I retract my snapped ankle and say busted kneecap. How's that? Anyway, there are militia groups that are openly blatant about going up and robbing and pillaging to take what they want. And those are run by a dictator. There's one person who runs the whole band, and they've had all the rest of them follow along like little baby Indians. And what they fail to realize is they won't last long. While they may flourish for a minute or two, they're eventually going to run up against a group that are going to hear about their exploits and say, you know what, we're not dealing with it, and they'll be eliminated. That's a fact. Well, it's proven militarily as well. If you keep going around thinking you're the cat's meow trying to do all this extra stuff, eventually you're going to run up upon a force that's immovable. That's kind of what I'm alluding to there, Timo. And sadly, we've all recently watched some of those groups materialize into a vitriol spewing channel. Some of the vitriol stopped recently. There's another word for vitriol. You're all not aware, and it's acid. And that's what their words are, is acid to other people. And unfortunately, the more acid they spew, the worse it makes it for the rest of us. Because let's say Bobby Joe and his wife get married, and they run across a homesteader. And the homesteader says, look, we're preparing, we're, just in case. I'm not saying anything's going to happen, but this is what we're doing. So Bobby Joe and his brand new wife, they decide to search in the YouTubes for prepping stuff. Well, they run across this, oh wow, this channel's got 67,000 subscribers. They must know what they're talking about. And they listen to the vitriol being spewed by this channel. Well, they'll either fall in line and become succumbs to it, or they're going to get turned away, which means that's one more set of people that are going to be in the way of preppers trying to get wherever they need to go with their hands out going, can you help me, please? Sorry, no, I can't. You had a chance, you failed to utilize it, and I'm sorry. Evening, Chris. And that's all anybody can try to do, Gibson girl, is try to figure out how to deal with it as it comes along. I don't consider it playing a game as some people would. Hardest thing for most people to accept that there is no hard or fast answer that will for every time work. Everyone. It takes experience and a willingness to adapt. And that, for me, backwoods, that's why I keep trying, to get people to think outside the box. Because if they can't think outside, hey, rescue boss, if they can't think outside the box, then they're not going to be able to adapt. In order to adapt, you have to be willing to look at a different side of the coin. At least that's the way I look at it. And, I only slept at Holiday Inn a few times, so I could be all wet or wrong, or who knows. I'd try. So, rescue, um, now that you're late to class, what have you got to say for yourself? And anybody else with anything else to add? Snow does, a little bit, if you're driving in it. But see, with me, I'm not driving in it, so I actually enjoy the snow. Thanks. Hello, Kyle. Well, the important thing, Rescue Boss, is you made it home safe. That's the important thing. Agreed, Ox. That goes back to getting to know people. And sadly, a chat room isn't going to help. You actually have to physically meet people, be able to reach out and shake their hands and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm so and so." And my granddaddy taught me. He says you can tell a lot by a person by the way they shake your hand. If it's a good, strong, firm handshake, you can afford to take a risk, and getting to know them. If it's a wimpy, limp-wristed type handshake, they're not putting no effort into meeting you, then be cordial, but just walk away from them. That's, the way my granddaddy taught me. And for the most part, it's turned out true most of my life. Now, I'm not saying that I expect a lady walk up to, basically crush my hand, but you can tell a lot by the way a person shakes your hands. And exactly, eye contact. If they're going like this a lot, they're kind of looking around, they're not making a lot of eye contact, then yeah, that's another giveaway. But I have a counter to that. I don't normally look people in the eye. I look at the corners of their mouth while they're talking. Because most people cannot lie and keep their face straight. Most people will get a little teeny twitch right there in the corner of their mouth. And 99.9% of people don't even realize they do it. So I just gave y'all a little secret. So, I mean, I talk a lot about myself, Rescue Boss. At least I try. Problem is, nobody's here to listen to me. So I guess that's kind of a mute point. But, eye contact, and with my neck the way it is, if you're at my eye height, I kind of have to tip my head, and that doesn't work. That's painful. But if you're shorter than me, then I can maintain eye contact, no problem. I don't have to constantly look down. Speed dating. Who's talk about dating? And some people are naturally not good with eye contact. Some people, I'm not going to, don't want to say it in a way to hurt anybody's feelings or offend anybody. Some people don't have a high enough self-esteem to where they can look at somebody in the eye constantly and watch their eye movements back and forth while they're talking. Some people have a hard time hearing, and their best way to find out, make sure they understand what somebody's saying, is by looking at their mouth, not their eyes. So there are different aspects to understanding the person you're talking to, whether they're looking at your eyes or your mouth, or if they're just kind of looking all over the place, not really listening to what you're saying, but just kind of half-assed responding. Don't mind me, I'm just trying to catch up. Right, and I think that's why I think what Diggers is trying to do is actually a good idea because he's trying to get lots of different people at a meetup. That's awesome. Whether this everybody melds into one group or they form separate groups, it gives everybody a chance to walk up, shake each other's hands, spend a day or two with each other around a campfire, talking. You can feel a person out quite a bit. Not that way. Get your mind out of the gutter. Stop that. That's not nice. As the old saying goes, when you break bread together, that tells a lot about a person. It's for me at least. I know that's coming from a biblical standpoint. If I'm going to break bread with you, that means I'm already trusting you at least a little bit to be in the same area to eat a meal with you. That takes a lot of trust for me to do that. Exactly, Diggers. And that's also the way information can be gathered. I mean, look at Rescue Boss, Backwoods Law, Medical. I don't know that much. Hanging out with them gives me, be it on YouTube or Discord or wherever, I get information as important as actually having a group to be with. And I don't know if I want to eat X's food or not. If Nina says it's already ruined her, I don't know. Sorry, X, I just don't know, man. Kidding, of course. And there's a degree to that too, X. Getting to meet random people versus people you've spent time with in the military or grew up with in school. I went to school with a guy, and we several years we didn't talk to each other. And then when he found out I was driving truck, he got his license, and we actually ran teams for a year. That's the kind of person that, well, up to a point, I would have had in my group. But I also know he's not trustworthy. That he'll stab somebody in the back. So he's not. I don't even talk to him anymore because that's what he did, and I parted ways with him. So I mean, you have to know the people, and random people sometimes it's hard to get to that kind of intimate knowledge. If I'm carrying sausage, I don't know if I'd want Odin to find me because he might try and bite, and I don't want to get bit. And part of that comes down to like I said earlier about electronics. This modern culture is so dependent upon phones. This is my cheap little teeny phone. Doesn't do internet, thank God, and tracking it's not that easy. It can be tracked, but people, you know, I had a lady give Charles a tablet. I don't let him use it that much. I don't want him addicted to electronics because that takes away the personal interactions that he needs to develop as he's growing up in order to be able to maintain a decent part of life. Electronics is zapping our kids' ability to interact socially with people. They want to do it via the keyboard, and well, we already got too many commando keyboarders out there as it is. Miss something? I must have missed something. Okay. Right, Ox. I agree. You can build trust up when you first meet somebody, but that trust isn't long lasting if you don't keep working on it on a constant basis. It's like pottery. Um, you can't start forming a pot and then just quit. You got to keep working that pot, and it's a slow process. You got to keep getting your hands wet. Got to keep getting your hands dirty with it in order to build that pot up into something that's nice. And that's how you work on friendships and build up a friendship. You got to keep getting your hand dirty a little bit. And sometimes you're right on that too. Sometimes you have to throw out the trash, Rescue Boss. Sometimes you just got to throw it out. Thank you, Ox. See, I told you guys, I spent a night at a Holiday Inn a while back. I can pretend smart sometimes. I'm not going to repeat that, Rescue Boss. I'm not going to repeat that. And like I said, well, I'm not letting Charles have access to that tablet as much as he wants. He earns it, and he earns it about twice a week, and that's it, because I don't want him addicted to it. He's already got an addictive personality thanks to his mother abusing drugs while she was pregnant for him, and it's an issue we have with him. So letting him play with that is not exactly very smart. I have to limit it. Anybody else? I hear crickets. Oh wait, that's just my heater. Never mind. I thought maybe it was spring outside, but nope, there's snow. Anybody want some snow? I got some. Free. Although I like the snow, I'd be willing to share it with everybody. Did I just hear Miss Nina say she wanted some snow? Well, it's probably just my laptop. It's not long for this world. And Diggers, my chat room was my stepbrother and sister outside or at my school. We played in dirt. Didn't have sterile environments with a keyboard and mouse. We had dirt. That's it. Well, I hope that's not true. All right, X, have a good night. There's too many druggy issues around where I live as it is. You too, X. Hello, Heavenly Dreams. Welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Although we're about ready to close this one down, feel free to rewatch and laugh hysterically sometimes. And who knows? Anybody else with any questions, comments, thoughts? I tried, Ox. I tried. Like I said, Charles destroyed my notes, so it kind of had to go from a rattle trap for a brain. Hopefully, hopefully there was a few good points made that'll help somebody somewhere. Some people it does, Diggers. Some people it does. Don't worry, Will. I plan on making it public. That's why I tried to keep certain words and phrases out of it so it could go public with no problems. Why is the sky blue? Well, it's due to the oxygenation of the atmosphere around us. Like I said, I hope it helps somebody. I'm a nobody, just like most everybody else. I want to try and help somebody. If I can get one person to start thinking about being prepared for an emergency of any kind, then I think I've done a good job. So, well, Lou, to be perfectly honest, from the people I've known around me, that they're not going to be around long. They're going to make stupid mistakes that lead to cost them or somebody else their life, and that will cost them their life. I make a living out of it, Christy. I make a living out of it. Being over 50 and raising a child by myself, I have to have a rattletrap brain sometimes. Sometimes, Gibson girl, you're right. Sometimes you have to be the crazy person in the family that people just don't understand. But when it comes down to it, you got to protect you and your own. And if they can't deal with it, then it's too bad on them. Well, if anybody is willing to stick around, I'm going to say a prayer real quick. So if you're not into praying and you don't want to hear it, I understand. I thank you for stopping by. If you're the praying type, then I ask you to bow with me for a second while we make a quick prayer. Lord, we learned today that somebody lost their mother. And Lord, we ask you to put your hand upon that person, give them a peace that defies understanding. Help them, help their family get through this time of sorrow. Lord, there are others within this group of people that may need healing, and I ask you, Lord, to lay your hand upon them and grant them healing. We claim those healing blessings in your name, Jesus. For everybody else, Lord, we ask that you would give them protection in their work, their travels, and their home life. And we claim these things in your name, Jesus. We pray this in your blessed name, Father God. Amen. So I hope that helps. Some people already know who I was referring to, and I'm not going to out that person unless she wants to. So that's just where I'll leave that. And with that note, I guess I'll go ahead and shut down the stream. I thank everybody for stopping by. Um, it might be a minute. I'm just now starting to feel a little bit better. I had to suck down half a bottle of cough medicine so I didn't cough too badly during the stream tonight. So hopefully in the next day or two I'll be back up enough to start finishing the videos. I've got 2 videos I've got to try and get pushed out soon. And we'll catch y'all guys next time. Hopefully I'll be able to do another live stream next Sunday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Again, thank you everybody for stopping by. Have a good night. Be safe. God bless.